Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me on this.
We're glad to have you. Friends, today we have Amelia Mae Johnson of the Conservative Workers' Party. We're going to talk about her new party today. So welcome. Let's get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to who you are, a brief biographical sketch.
Okay. I am the founder, president, and temporarily the treasurer of the Conservative Workers' Party, which is operational only in Arkansas at the moment. I'm just some redneck from the Ouachita Mountains. Not really anybody special.
So what led you to start this party?
Well, eventually I realized that neither major party represents... That's my alarm for this. Heck. Oh, good thing that works. Sorry, my alarm for this podcast went off.
Oh, good. I'm glad that you put it on the top of your schedule. So you're saying that neither of the two parties represents?
Yes, neither of the two parties represent the working class, especially the rural working class. The Republicans have anti-worker economic policies, and the Democratic Party has anti-worker social policies. So eventually I decided that neither major party is good, and no third party really fits very well. And I couldn't wait around for nobody else to make the perfect political party. So I had to take the initiative and do it myself because nobody else will.
Can you kindly discuss your platform and philosophy of the party? I looked at your website and it seems very novel. It seems like it synthesizes parts of liberalism and conservatism. So kindly address your platform and philosophy.
Yes, sir. Our position on the political spectrum, I like to say that we're to the left of the Democrats and to the right of the Republicans, because you can't really put us on the political spectrum, because the technical term is syncretic. That means we take positions from both what people generally see as the left and what people generally see as the right. But really, these terms are just shorthands to refer to whatever positions the major parties take. So we are syncretic, and our beliefs are based upon the 5 principles, which are social conservatism, economic progressivism, anti-corruption, populism, and equality for minorities. Those are the principles we were founded on. Our platform is pretty long. It's like 5 pages of solid bullet points, but you can read it at conservativeworkers.us/platform. Here's our most important policies, in my opinion. Favorability voting, which is just a term I use to describe combined approval voting. I think favorability voting is a much more marketable term since people associate that with favorability polls. People are more familiar with that, but that's combined approval voting. Harsher penalties for corruption, including being banned from holding office ever again if you're convicted. We radically support the Second Amendment. We want the state government to not only nullify federal gun control laws, which it has done, but to actively stand in the way of any policies that are against the Second Amendment, like illegal confiscation of firearms. We also want to nullify Roe v. Wade, just completely ignore that decision and ban abortion regardless of what the Supreme Court says, because they don't care about the Constitution. They weren't elected. And we believe that the lives of the unborn are more important than unelected plutocrats, oligarchs, critarchs, whatever you want to call them. We also want to nullify the Patriot Act. Again, the Supreme Court doesn't care about the Constitution, so they ain't going to protect the rights of the people. not be spied on by the government without a warrant. We also support LGBT rights. I myself am actually transgender, but also we take a position that is a bit more conservative in that we believe that children should not have sexual reassignment surgery, and that some sexual reassignment surgery should not even be allowed until the age of 25. And we also believe that there should be religious exemptions for certain things, like baking a wedding cake for a gay marriage, like if it directly relates to gay marriage. But like, we do not believe in discrimination. We should believe that discrimination should be illegal if it does not relate specifically to the homosexual acts. We are also radically anti-communist. We believe that we have to work very diligently to prevent the American way of life from being destroyed by the far left, because our government has been infiltrated. Our government, our media, Hollywood, everything in American society has been infiltrated by communists. And we have to work very hard to make sure that these communists are out of our government. And it's very hard to realize who's a communist, because they ain't everybody who's left-leaning economically. We're left-leaning economically. Matter of fact, most communists in the government support right-wing economics because they want to hurt America. The people like Joe Biden who appoint people with ties to the Chinese Communist Party. We also want to keep police departments fully funded and centralize ineffective police departments, like the Little Rock Police Department, which is horrible, under the State Police of Arkansas. We want to keep drugs illegal, but we want to decriminalize possession, at least for the first offense. We also want to expand the death penalty to include child molesters, rapists, drug dealers, etc. We want to reactivate the Arkansas State Guard, which is sort of like a state military that was active during World War II, but was deactivated by the legislature, I believe. But the legislature can reactivate it, and we believe that should be the case because crime is so high, and the risk of the federal government trying to take away our rights is also too high. And we also believe in a $15 minimum wage, $12 for small businesses, though. A 0% income tax under $30,000, which means that the state income tax right now, if you make $1, you got to pay income taxes on that to the state. And in Ohio, you ain't got to pay income taxes unless you make like 31,000 something. So we took that idea and said, what about 30,000? It's a bit more memorable of a number, and that would help the working class a lot. We also want to get rid of sales taxes because they disproportionately hurt the poor. And it's pretty hard on businesses to have to collect sales taxes, especially since you have to pay $50 up front for the privilege of paying taxes. Like, you literally have to pay $50 to the state of Arkansas for a sales tax permit, and that hurts small businesses. We also want to refund unused tax dollars at the end of the year. So if the state government, Arkansas has a huge surplus, like millions of dollars every year, hundreds of millions of dollars every year. And so we want to refund that equally to all Arkansans. And the way we're going to do that is we're actually going to round down all the time. So there's a little bit left over, and then that leftover will be put into a savings account so that the government don't, like we have a rainy day fund. That ain't the same thing as a universal basic income, by the way. It's just giving back unused tax dollars. And we also support what people refer to as Medicare for All, which is free health insurance for all Arkansans. And we especially want Our Kids for All. Our Kids, or more appropriately, Our Kids First, but most people just call it Our Kids, is a program that gives low-income children free health care. And we want to expand that to every child. And ideally, we would expand it to every Arkansan, but we don't know if that's really possible right now with such a Republican legislature. We also want to nationalize utilities and provide them for free. So water, electricity, even internet access would be consolidated into a not really a state-owned enterprise, but rather a people-owned enterprise. So every Arkansan would be a stockholder in this company, which would be the Arkansas General Utilities Company. That's a possible name. And then that would deal with the utilities. It would make sure everything, like the lines, are fixed. And people would get a certain amount of, say, electricity free every month. And that would help the poor significantly. We also want a wealth tax on net worth over $100 million. I know the Waltons are going to be very unhappy about that, but we don't care about what the Waltons think. We also want to buy shares in companies to pay for universal retirement. So that's another people-owned company. So at the age of 60, every person in Arkansas would become a stockholder in the Arkansas General Retirement Company. And that company would use a certain amount of state funds, however much the legislature appropriates to it, to buy stocks in companies. And those stocks would pay dividends to the retirement company, and then that would pay dividends to retirees. And that is so, it's a bit easier to pay for it because there would be less taxes involved, and it'll be it wouldn't be affected by changes in taxation. We also want at least 33% or 1/3 worker ownership of large businesses, not small businesses though. This is based on the co-determination system in Germany, where it's actually nearly half, and I prefer half, but 1/3 is what our platform says. We also want to elect some representatives based on trade, which means that in addition to being able to represent someone for your House and Senate district, you would also be able to elect a representative for the industry that you work in. For example, farmers, construction workers, etc. And by the way, this is actually called corporatism. The word corporatism people actually use was better known as corporatocracy. Corporatism as an ideology basically just says that different classes or industries should have representation in the government. It's actually kind of the opposite of what people use the term for, but I digress. We also want 6 months parental leave, which seems kind of radical, but that's what they do in Iceland. We actually want to base our system on the Icelandic system because we are very family values centric. We're socially conservative, economically progressive, and that culminates into a lot of parental leave because folks need to raise their kids. Them kids need to be raised by their parents so that they can grow up into functional adults that can contribute to society. They need that love, that affection, the teaching from their parents. They need that. And a very unique policy for the state of Arkansas is that Arkansas is the only state in the union that does not have minimum habitability requirements for rental properties. It is legal to rent out a house that is not fit to live in. I've lived in houses that ain't fit to live in before. One time there was like a 1 or 2 inch gap in the wall where you could see the ground. I dropped something in there one time and it went to the ground. And that would be illegal in every other state, but in Arkansas, it's illegal. And the Conservative Workers' Party will change that. We will have a system based more on Vermont's renters' rights system. We'll have minimum habitability, more time for grace periods for the leases terminated or modified without any kind of reason. And we also, seeing how Arkansas is the natural state, we're environmentalists. I gotta let my chihuahua out. Sorry. I thought she'd behave, but nope. We also want harsher penalties for littering and dumping. That's all I'm going to talk about right now. It ended up being like a whole hour long.
Okay, that's good. That gives us an overview of your party. I do have a question. You mentioned about how you would have some representatives based on industry, like a construction worker would vote for a construction worker to represent industry. So would you allow trade unions the way they exist form of government?
Well, our policy is a policy of universal unionization. We want to merge unions with the state and make them an arm of the state. That's also called corporatism, to where we have the unions will be merged with the state. Every worker in Arkansas would automatically become a union member and be able to vote for union representatives at the state level and within that union itself. But the union would also include industry leaders, like, if you're a business owner, you'd get representation too. So it ain't
Okay.
just for workers.
Okay, that makes sense. So since you're the chairman of the party, kindly explain what duties you have as chairman.
Well, actually, our party is unique in that we ain't got a chairman.
Oh,
Matter
you
of
don't.
fact, that position is called president because we merged the positions of chairperson and president together into a single position called president. And the president is not only elected by the people of the party, but is charged with the duties of presiding over the committee, serving on the committee, and carrying out the executive functions of the party. So my role would be to do all that, preside over the committee, and do executive functions. My job is pretty much everything. I write all the documents like the platform and the rules. I plan the events. I run all the social media accounts. I even coded the party's website from scratch. I'm a web developer, actually. And I also temporarily fill the office of treasurer, and that deals with money and finances. But right now, the president is a very expansive role. That just means whatever needs to be done, I do it.
Okay, makes sense. Since you mentioned the web design, I did notice your website. It seems to be minimalistic. Minimalistic. It it doesn't have excess graphics, or it doesn't have a lot of pop-ups or a lot of things that people like to do nowadays. So did you do that intentionally to make it simple and right to the point?
Uh, yes, sir. That's kind of my personal style is minimalism. I really like to do the least amount possible because you can do more with less, really.
Sure. So how has your party been received so far?
Uh, Technically, we've only been in existence for a few days. This is like the fourth day. Um, but we've had some positive responses to the party. Not very many responses overall, obviously, since we just been formed. But there's been a lot of positive reactions, like on social media and whatnot. And I'm sure if we just talk about certain issues, people will have positive responses. For example, 56% of Americans are socially conservative, so they'll agree with our social policy. And 52% of Americans are economically progressive, so they'll agree with our economic policies. And it's an interesting thing is that there's only 14% overlap, but that is, I guess you could consider our base, which is 14% of Americans. The numbers will be different for the state of Arkansas, but that's a general overview I saw a while back.
Okay, you said you just got the party registered and started. We have people out there in our audience who are activists in political parties, and they may need to register a political party. It does differ from state to state, of course, but can you tell us what it's like in Arkansas to get your party established with the legal process?
Yeah, legally, it's a big pain in the butt. I had to contact the Secretary of State's office because they ain't got a process for registering political parties. And I still ain't entirely sure what we're supposed to do legally speaking. But I don't know if we even have to register yet, because I know you have to file certain financial documents with the state, but I don't know if that has any implications on what form we take, like if we're a corporation or unincorporated. Right now, we're unincorporated, but I'll have to probably eventually talk to a lawyer if we can eventually get one. That'd be nice. But hopefully, we won't have to incorporate for a while, since we can still file the financial documents and stuff.
Okay.
But if you're looking to start a political party, I forgot to mention this. Just talk with people. That's all a political party really is. Just get together with some people, talk about what you believe, discuss candidates, and then promote them. That's literally how a political party is defined. Anybody can do it.
All right. I do have another question about your platform, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
It,
Uh,
it addresses alcohol in a way that I don't see in most platforms, except maybe one political party I can think of. So kindly share what your platform addresses about alcohol.
yes. Our political party is also unique in that we support the statewide prohibition of intoxicating liquors throughout Arkansas. Arkansas is one of the only states that has dry counties where it's illegal to sell alcohol. And a while back, the county I live in right now used to be dry, but they had a special election with 5% voter turnout. It's really low, like less than 5% at the most, because they manipulate the dates. That's now not allowed because the General Assembly passed a law setting fixed dates. But back then, they manipulated it, the alcoholics, so that they could sell alcohol in my county. But the county next over, just a few miles down the road that I used to live in, is a dry county. And so I'm very familiar with the dynamics between wet and dry counties since I've grown up on the border between the two. And so that was a very big issue on our platform, is whether we support making this whole state dry or just certain counties. And we made a decision that we wanted statewide prohibition. And actually, I forgot to mention this. The Prohibition Party is the one party you talked about, right? That supports prohibition.
Yep.
And Arkansas is the state they do the best in. I just wanted to mention that.
Huh, interesting. So I live in Texas, and we do have a fair number of dry counties here, but I also live in Austin, which is definitely not dry. So how to give an idea to our audience, what's the state feel about alcohol? Does it vary? Is there a split because of the different dry and wet counties? Is it like 50-50, or how does Arkansas perceive alcohol?
It's really taboo to consume alcohol. It's seen as something that criminals do. That's generally how it's perceived. When I was growing up, that's generally how people presented it, was that don't drink. Everybody tells their kids to not drink, even if they have a can of beer in their hand as they're saying it. They say don't drink. It's bad for you, and it is. Nobody should drink because it's a poison. It's literally a poison. And where was I going with this? People overall, though, I don't know if there ain't been no polls, so I ain't got no numbers on like how popular alcoholism is. But I'd say that it is about a 50-50 split, at least county-wise. But a few counties did vote to go wet. Wikipedia is actually wrong about one, because I saw that a county voted wet and it still showed it as a dry county. I don't know if they changed that, but there are some counties that have voted wet. So maybe it's going in the opposite direction, but I can't see any concrete numbers. In the General Assembly, though, I think it's mostly they don't want prohibition at the state level, but they support counties deciding for themselves. But if you see certain bills, there's certainly a large percentage of Republicans, mostly, who are anti-alcohol, usually from dry counties.
Huh, that's interesting. So kindly tell our audience how they can support your party.
Yeah, if you want to support us, we actually need a lot of supporters right now because we're understaffed. You can join the party, share our stuff on social media, talk about us with your friends. You can run as a candidate. You ain't even got to be a member. Just ask for our endorsement, and we will endorse members of other parties who fit our principles. We also, volunteers would be nice, because we hope to do protests and voter registration drives, especially in rural areas. So if we got volunteers, we would be able to do that kind of stuff. And I mean, we're going to try to do that kind of stuff anyways. with how many people we have, but it would be easier with volunteers. So volunteering is one of the big things. But the number one thing I want to stress is that we really need candidates. That's the reason that the Conservative Workers' Party exists, to run candidates. That's the purpose of any political party. So if you want to run for office, if you agree with our principles, if you live in Arkansas, which is the only state we're in right now, then contact us, get in touch. Maybe you can run as a candidate, or maybe you can run as another party and we'll endorse you. But either way, we need to get as many people running for as many offices as possible, and we need to upset the establishment in a way that puts us in people's minds, so people can see us at least, and hopefully so we can win some places. A lot of elections in Arkansas are unopposed. My House district, for example, unopposed Republican. There was no other choice. You either voted for the Republican or you didn't vote. And elections like that, we have an advantage in, because all the people from the other party are going to vote for us. So you have an automatic 20-30%. And then you build upon that with other support, because we can draw a lot of support from the Republicans too. But we need people running for office. I hope that answers your question.
It does, yes. And your website is conservativeworkers.us?
Yes, sir.
All right. So they can go there. We thank you for coming on the podcast today and sharing your vision with our audience.
Thank you.
You have a good day and all the best to you in your party's endeavors.
You too.
Bye now.